The Invincible Teams podcast is powered by Evergreen. Evergreen provides teamwork, training, and consulting to help your team thrive in every season. If you want to have a team that makes other leaders jealous, get started by going to their website in the show notes and scheduling your free consultation today. Welcome to Invincible Teams, a podcast for team leaders and business owners who are tired of dealing with drama and politics, high turnover, and teams not meeting their potential. We know that team leaders and business owners like you are pretty much always under pressure to get the most out of your teams. And we believe that every team should reach their potential, and that if we get intentional, our teams can become invincible. Welcome back to the Invincible Teams podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Mayfield, and today I'm really excited to get to sit down with the CEO of Conway Corp, Bret Carroll. So, Bret, thanks for sitting down today.
Yeah, glad to be here with you, Ryan.
Yeah. I'm excited to have you here. For those that are not local to the Central Arkansas area, why don't you give us a little intro both to yourself and to Conway Corp?
Sure. Well, so a little bit about me. I'm a believer. First of all and foremost, I grew up in Southwest Little Rock, so a little community called Mableville. That's where I grew up. Came to college here in Conway. Met my wife of 31 years.
UCA?
We met at UCA,
Okay.
University of Central Arkansas.
Purple Bears.
That's right, go Bears. So I got graduate and undergraduate degrees there. But probably the most important thing I did was meet my wife there.
Yeah.
We celebrated 31 years of marriage this year.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And probably, one of our proudest accomplishments is our daughter, Caitlin.
Yeah.
She's 27, and she is a school teacher. She teaches ESL in the North Little Rock School District.
Wonderful.
And so we're really proud of her, and
That's
she's
awesome.
we're glad that she's close to us as well.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about me, and of course I guess I've been here 23 years, so I've had the privilege of working at Conway Corp for 23 years.
23, okay.
23,
and
yeah.
how long have you been running the show?
Well, for the past 4 years.
4
So I
years.
started in 1998 as CFO. My background is accounting, and so I was a CFO in 1998. That's what I hired on to do,
Okay.
and became CEO 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, we're getting into Conway Corp history a little bit here,
Sure.
but there's not been a ton of people that have held that position.
No, I think I'm the sixth
Wow.
person in our 90 years
Wow.
to be in that role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's incredible, and I know as a customer of Conway Corp how incredible the organization is. But again, for those who are not familiar with Central Arkansas area at all, why don't you tell people a little bit about what Conway Corp is and what you guys do?
You bet. So we are a private nonprofit corporation. We're a municipally owned utility, and so what does that mean? Well, the bigger ones that you might be aware of would be Los Angeles, Power and Water, San Antonio, Austin, Nashville Electric Service. So all of those major cities like that have municipally owned utilities. And when I say municipally owned, they're not investor owned, so they're not trying to derive a return for their shareholders. And so really, in essence, the citizens of Conway own Conway Corp. And so we report to an independent board of directors, 7 board members that live here in our community, have to live in the city of Conway to be on our board, and they're elected.
Yeah.
But our regulatory authority is the city council of Conway. So we answer to, we're accountable to our citizens and our customers and the city council. They're the ones who regulate us.
Yeah.
We do electric, water, wastewater. We also do video, data, voice, and security. And we've got about 250 employees, and we serve about 70,000 customers in our city.
Yeah.
And so it's an honor to work here, and it's the other thing that we often think about, and I think we do a pretty good job of customer service, because our customers we see every day.
Yeah.
We see them at the grocery store. We see them at ball games. We see them at church. And so you're accountable to them whether you want to be or not. So customer service is very important to us. And so,
well,
anyway.
I'll tell you my best story about customer service with Conway Corp is I was in my house one day and I heard this explosion right? And so I walk outside to see what it was, and it was on my pole. It was one of the boxes had blown, one of the big
transformer.
fuses. Yeah. And as soon as I walked outside, this truck pulled up in like the road next to my house. It's a Conway Corp truck, and a guy got out and goes, "Hey, I just saw that explode. You want me to fix it?" Like, yes. Did you know it was going to? I mean, he was on the spot.
Well, it sounds like we got lucky right there. We're normally not that quick, but I think we really try hard to hire people that really connect to our core values.
Yeah.
And of course, one of those is responsibility. One of those is community, and all those things matter to us. And coincidentally, we had an outage. I don't like to talk about outages, but we had one last night. And on the heels of this storm, we had a tree that blew over and took out some of our distribution system.
Yeah.
When a tree falls, it usually hits something.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of times it hits our power lines.
Sure.
And that was the case this morning. And our guys were out there from about 1 o'clock to about 4 o'clock restoring power. So anyway, they do a great job.
I know a lot of your guys, the guys that are on the ground, or well, maybe not on the ground, your linemen who are up in the air.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
I know a lot of those guys,
Yeah.
and one thing that I wouldn't say about any of them is that any of them are lazy.
No,
every
not.
one of them I know is hardworking and got a ton of respect and appreciation for those guys. And certainly for the people that are maybe not out on the poles or installing modems, but people that are working here in the office and keeping things going.
Yeah, our electric department, and really all of our company, really are conscientious about the customers that we serve, and I think we've always known that, I believe, but our electric department got an opportunity to go to the Four Corners area and serve the Navajo Nation as part of the Light Up Navajo project. So 75% of the people in the United States that don't have power live on that reservation.
Oh, wow.
And so we sent a crew out there, and I think it was very touching and moving for them to see, what other people in our country deal with. And so the thing that I tell people, if they'll go out there and take care of people that they don't even know, how well do you think they want to take care of you? And so I think in general that's hopefully the kind of person that we hire that takes a lot of individual responsibility to make sure the customer's taken care of.
Yeah, well, I think you guys do a great job of it.
Yeah.
Whenever I asked you about sitting down with me today, one of the things that you mentioned that really jumped out to you as something that you wanted to talk about was the idea of empowering people, right? Why, as the leader of the organization, why do you think empowering people is so important?
Yeah. Well, I think in my professional experience, when you empower people across the organization, that's really where you're going to get good growth, good success. I don't think a top-down approach where you dictate to various managers what they're going to be doing and what they need to be doing is really a good long-term approach. I mean, you see those companies that have charismatic leaders that do well for a while, but I think the best companies are those ones where you can hire people and empower them to do what needs to be done. Now I'm certainly, I believe in having someone who can cast the vision and chart the course, but I think empowerment is an absolute necessity to ultimately get where you want to go. I really do.
So what does that look like for you guys here? I mean, obviously not everybody listening is running a municipal utility company.
Sure.
But for you guys specifically, what's it look like for you to empower people at Conway Corp?
Yeah. Well, we have a strategic planning process that we go through. And so we work with our board and set some pretty high-level strategic areas of focus. Within those strategic areas of focus, we establish goals. So I have really leaders that run certain divisions of the corporation. I have a chief financial officer, a chief technology officer, a chief operating officer, a chief marketing officer, and a power supply director, an HR director, and they're all responsible for, big portions of the company. And so what we do collectively is kind of set those high-level areas of focus and goals, and then they're responsible and empowered to pursue whatever actions, to execute whatever strategies are most important to help us achieve those goals. And so that's what they do. That's what I empower them to do. I'm not that charismatic leader. I'm really not. And there's too much going on for me to try to handle all of it. Now, certainly I'm involved. I ask questions. I try to stay apprised of what's going on. But for the most part, they're responsible for making those things happen. And I think really, you know, and that also kind of trickles down within their organization as well. I mean, there are people within their organization in their areas of leadership that are responsible and empowered to do their jobs as well and to get things done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do know that a big thing that you guys do is try to give a lot of opportunity to people to grow, to advance. I'm thinking of a friend of mine who does a lot of installs for people, and the number of like classes he's been able to go to, or you know, places he's been able to travel to learn different things. Seems like he's doing that kind of stuff all the time. Why is that so valuable to you guys?
Well, that's a great question, Ryan, and I think it speaks to sort of what Conway Corporation is, and the thing that we see across the organization is really very little turnover from our employees. And there's a lot of reasons I think why that's true, but one I think is the amount of time and money we invest in our people. And I think that when you spend time and money on someone, training them, educating them, I mean, it's a risk. I mean, they could take those skill sets and they're more marketable. They can go somewhere else and do that same job. But I think empowerment is important. I think regardless of where you are in the organization, I think you know, we all understand that as you trickle down the org chart, that depending on where you land, you've got more or less responsibility or more or less accountability. But I think everybody likes the opportunity to have some input into the success of the organization. You know, most people do. Now, there are employees that want to just be told what to do every day, and I understand that. And you need people who are good at that. But in general, most people want to have some input into the success that we see. And so I think empowerment, you know, really pervades our organization. But I think training helps people know that you're confident in them, that you trust them, that you're valuable to them. I mean, I think that all those things matter. And I think when they know that you have confidence in them and that you want to invest in them and that you want to spend money in them, they know that you want them here. And I think that helps them feel more free to offer ideas and suggestions and really help the organization do more. You know, you talk about one thing you mentioned early on there was about training people and potentially them taking that training and going somewhere else. One of the best concepts I heard, and I don't remember where I heard it, I didn't come up with it, was you kind of have to choose the risk. You either risk losing trained people or keeping untrained people. That's right. Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's true.
It sounds like you guys are more than willing to risk losing people in exchange for training them, giving them opportunities, empowering them.
Well, I think that's true. And that's always, I think, been the case, is that we've always wanted to invest in our people. And for every job that we have, there's very few, and I can't think of one, where somebody can come in day one and do it well. It takes time. I mean, it takes time for anyone at any level to get proficient at the task that they're assigned. So we want them to be good at that. We want to train them. We want them to have confidence, because ultimately that translates to a really good customer experience. But historically, we've not had really any issues with employees leaving to go somewhere else. I mean, it happens sometimes.
But people generally stay where they're valued, right?
That's right. That's right. I've been here 23 years. Our COO has been here 36 years. Our CFO has been here 35 years.
Wow.
Our chief marketing officer, she's been here 22 years.
I mean, just counting you, those four people are over 100 years of experience.
That's right. I mean, we just don't see a lot of turnover, and I think it's a lot of things. I mean, you know, we're a municipal utility. We're not going to pay people the way an investor-owned company pays people, but I think there's a lot of benefit that goes into the compensation, whether it's pay, whether it's, you know, all the benefits that accrue, as well as, I mean, most people want to feel like they're making a difference in their job. I think that is the ultimate fulfillment. that when you go home at the end of the day, you've made a difference wherever you are.
Yeah.
And I think that for the most part, people can feel like that they can make a difference, or that at some point they can sit around the table and say, what if we tried this, or what if we did this? Or I heard from a customer the other day that wanted this. Could we offer that? And so, and that doesn't have to just come from my leadership team. It can come from anybody in the organization. And those kind of, I think, nuggets of empowerment help us to be as good as we are on the days that we do things that are really well. You know.
Well, let's go with that, because I want to ask you about empowering people at different levels of the organization. So let's start with kind of where you were just at. What does it look like to empower the people, you know, at the, for lack of a better phrase, lowest levels of the organization, the people that are on the ground, you know, working down there? What does it look like for a company to empower that group of people?
You know, I don't know that it's dramatically different than other levels of the company. I think that depending on the org chart, you've got different levels of responsibility and different levels of accountability. But for example, the outage that we had last night or early this morning, those guys don't need me out there in their way. They need me out of their way. They know how to do their job. They know how to do it well, and they're empowered to do the things they need to do to get those customers taken care of. And so I think that has been a recipe for success for us for many, many, many years. And so they just know that we trust them. They know that we've had great experience with allowing them to do those kinds of things. And so I had an opportunity many years ago. We had an ice storm. I guess it was 2001, and at that time we didn't have a call center, so everybody in the office just logged in and took phone calls.
Wow.
Hey, my power's out. Hey, do you know my power's out? My power's out. And so you get a lot of those calls, and there's two things they want to know almost invariably when they call you. Do you know my power's out?
And when are you going?
And when is it going to get back on? You know, that's what they want to know. And I'll tell you what, Ryan, after 3 days of that nonstop, I was wore out.
I bet.
So Saturday rolled around, and I thought, well, I know our electric department's going to be out there doing stuff. How can I help? So I just went around with them, you know, holding the flashlight, carrying tools, bringing them coffee, whatever it took. And I learned a lot about the work that they do. And so for me, you know, 20 years later, I mean, I know a little bit about what they're facing on the ground. So, I mean, we can't have that person who's dealing with that customer face to face be encumbered by something that doesn't make a lot of sense. And so empowerment, I think, is ever evolving. You know, we want them to understand that, you know, oh, look, this situation's a little different. Hey, how do we deal with that? But I think they know they've got flexibility. And at that level, when they're dealing with a customer, they've got a good bit of autonomy to do what they need to do to get that taken care of. You know, there's very few circumstances I can think of where they're going to do something that's going to create great harm for us in that moment, because they're well trained, they know what to do. So I don't know if I answered your question well,
and
but
one of the words you used early on in it, which I think just captures so much of it, was you used the word trust. And it sounds like one of the big things that you're saying is empowerment for even the ground level means a lot of trust. It's a trust first economy.
Absolutely.
And not only is that empowering for those people, it's got to be also freeing for you and for other, you know, leaders in the organization. Because if you're spending all your time in the middle of everything they're doing, right? I mean, that's going to take up every waking moment that you have.
That's right.
And so that's got to be, I mean, that frees up a whole organization to move faster, to get things done, to not be all encumbered by all those little things.
That's right.
So.
And it, you know, I don't want it to sound like that, you know, we just come in here and wake up and you know, with a new day, and everybody we come in and go, all right, just do what you want to do today.
Right.
That's not what I mean by empowerment. I mean, again, we have a strategic plan, we have some focus on that, but so there's some broad parameters within we expect people to work. But the other side of that is we are very careful with our hiring process and the process we use, you know, to vet people, to train people. And so we expect a lot out of our people. We really do. We expect a lot. We hold them to high standards. We look at metrics like RP3, so it's a reliable public power provider. That is a American Public Power Association accreditation. We're the only diamond designee in the state of Arkansas out of 15 municipal utilities. And so that doesn't just happen. I mean, you have to hire the right people. You have to plan well. You have to invest well in your infrastructure. You have to focus on safety. So, I mean, empowerment's not just, all right, I'm going to go to my office and shut the door and you guys do some good stuff.
Right.
That's not what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to hire the right people and expect a lot out of them. But once we do that, we've accomplished that, then trust goes a long way into making sure they are empowered to do the things that we need them to do.
That's a great clarification.
Yeah, okay.
What about people, not people that are necessarily on the ground all the time and not your chief officers, but kind of your middle management level, team leaders and things like that? What does that look like to empower those people?
Yeah. Well, and I keep going back to the strategic plan.
Yeah.
But it's really interwoven in a lot of work that we do, and they're involved in that process as well. So it starts with, I guess, my leadership team and the board at the very high level. So strategic areas of focus, and then broad goals.
Okay.
But the action items to achieve those goals, those really are accomplished and developed by the chiefs and their managers, their leadership team.
Okay.
And so that's where really they get connected. And so a lot of the action items, it's not the chiefs coming up with them, it's their leadership team. And so they're very connected and very invested in the strategic plan, and they're bought into it, right? I mean, again, it's not me and 8 people going, all right, here's the stuff we're going to be working on the next 5 years. Y'all go make that happen.
Well, they're bought into it because they helped create it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. So, and then they're empowered to make sure those action items are achieved, you know.
Is that strategic vision you talk about, is that something that was set a long time ago? Is that revised often?
Yeah, our first strategic plan, good question. Our first strategic plan took place in 2012.
Okay.
So it hadn't been a process we've been using for a long time. I'm a big believer in it. And the first one was sort of clunky. You know, we were working through it. The board was working through it. We'd never done one before. And it was really a good exercise, but we all learned some things. We've done 3 more since, but they typically tend to be 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
In duration. The one we did before 2018 was only 2 years because my predecessor was about to retire, and they didn't want to do a long-term strategic plan, not knowing who would replace him, and you know, you didn't want to necessarily saddle the new person with a bunch of things that they weren't a part of. So, but they're typically 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
So we're 2.5 years into the current one, and we'll do another one probably in a year or two, and they probably will turn into more of an evolutionary process where, you know, where the strategic plan, instead of, you know, putting a plan on the books and then starting over from fresh, 3 or 5 years down the road, I think it'll be more of a rolling plan where it evolves and
kind of a living document.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. That's correct.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, so what about the top levels of the organization? What does it look like to empower your chief officers? I mean, even the board to some degree, probably. What does that look like for you?
Well, I mean, that looks that looks like this. I really count on, again, I'm not that charismatic leader. I'm not that smart. so I really rely on them to be trusted advisors. And we have some hard conversations, I mean, about various topics, because I believe that when you have strong opinions coming together and good logical debate, that's how you get to the best solutions. And so for me, I mean, empowering them is letting them know that they can disagree with me. Yeah. They can give me their point of view. We can talk about it. We can discuss it. And a lot of times they'll change my mind. Yeah. And so I think empowering them is just knowing that we're going to talk about these things together. Yeah. You know, and even sometimes with that discussion, sometimes they change my mind, sometimes they don't. but they know that always they've got an opportunity and a right to say, look, Brett, have you thought about this?
Yeah.
Did you think about that? Are you concerned about this potential impact? So I think just letting them know that, hey, we can talk about it.
Yeah.
That you've got the right to say, I disagree with you, and here's why.
Yeah.
And what if we did it this way? And again, sometimes those discussions are, I don't want to say heated. I don't think that's the right word.
But
they're
they should be
certainly
passionate, right?
Sir?
They should be passionate.
That's right. They're passionate. They're certainly sometimes intense.
Yeah.
But again, if you do those things in the right way, with boundaries and respect, mutual respect, then I think that's how you get to the best solution.
Yeah.
And so that's what it looks like for them and for our board too, for that matter. I mean, when the board hired me, I told them, I said, look, we're going to disagree at times. I'm going to make mistakes. But when we disagree, we're going to disagree in an agreeable way. And when I make mistakes, I hope they're not big ones. I hope they're ones that we can manage and work our way through.
Yeah.
So anyway, but that's kind of what empowerment looks like for our board and for my leadership team.
Well, I love that for a lot of different reasons. One being that sets a tone for the entire organization, right? If there's that level of trust and ability to engage in conflict and debate at a high level in the organization, then that's going to trickle down.
Yeah, I think so.
But then also, have you ever read Patrick Lencioni, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team?
I have, yeah.
That's all I was thinking of as you were talking, and how that when people can engage in healthy conflict, what that creates is commitment.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
When you arrive at those best solutions, people are committed. Even if you didn't go with their idea,
That's right.
they have been able
People
to
want to be
voice
heard.
it. They've been heard. They've been considered.
Yeah.
And then together you made a decision about a direction to go. And people are bought in whenever they know that they've at least been heard and considered.
Yeah, I've read that book and I made my leadership team read it because
reread it.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Well, yeah, I pop it open all the time just to go, no, what about that? Or is this person on my team that person that's in the book? You know.
Yeah.
But because I think we need to be reminded of the things, the characteristics that we have that we fall into that are dysfunctional.
Yeah.
I think we need to be reminded of those things, so I made them read it. I read it myself, and it really was pretty eye opening to me because all of a sudden I had 3 brand new chiefs when I took over. So when I succeeded
Out
Richie
of
Arnold,
5?
out of actually there was actually 4. So we had a chief executive, chief operating, chief financial, and chief technology. And so when I took over as CEO, we needed a new CFO. Now Tracy Moore has been here a number of years, but he's only been CFO for 4 years. Greg Dale has been here a number of years, but he had never been COO. And so he started in that role 4 months after I took over. Yeah. Now Jason Hansen had been in his role as CTO for about 5 or 6 years. So he was the experienced one of the group. And then Crystal Kemp, who you met at another time, we didn't have a chief marketing officer.
Right.
Did not have that role.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden I had that dynamic of really a brand new team. Yeah. So it was important for us to understand our strengths and weaknesses and how we could function as a team and not be dysfunctional.
Well, and this isn't supposed to be a commercial for Pat Lencioni's book here, but before I got here today, I was with a restoration company, right? Water, fire, mold, that is who I was with, and their company that 6 months ago, I took them through 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
Gotcha.
And today we were talking about a different Lencioni book with them. And so it doesn't matter if you're a 250 person, fairly good size company with a lot of reach, or if you're this organization that has just a handful of people in it. These concepts that we're talking about, empowering and all this cultural stuff, has a huge significance to any company regardless of size.
I agree.
And so it's really cool to see you guys implementing that here with your teams. And it's not surprising. Yeah. Like, it's not surprising because what I see as a customer, it makes total sense that you guys would be pouring into that and intentional with that at the deepest levels of the organization. It has an impact. Yeah. Has an impact on the bottom line and on
I think
customers.
a perfect example, thank you for saying that, and I think a perfect example of empowerment, I talked about that book like, oh yeah, that was my idea. It was not. One of my chiefs and this gets back to empowerment, said, hey, I think it would be good if you read this book, and that we considered it. And I did, and we did. And so, it really was the basis for some good team building discussions.
That's awesome.
So anyway, it was really a good exercise to go through.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, again, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me. If, we got business owners and team leaders and stuff listening now, if you could give them one kind of parting thing about empowering people and being a leader who empowers people on their teams, what would you say?
Yeah. Great question. And you and I have been talking about empowerment and the success that it breeds. But I think what we need to be prepared for as leaders is that sometimes empowerment, you have failures. Sometimes they're minor. Sometimes they're epic. And so just be prepared that is a risk that is out there. I think it's well worth it. But I think it's important for one who empowers not to micromanage. I mean, that's the antithesis of empowering people, but certainly be engaged, be involved, ask those key questions, but make sure you're engaged in such a way that you're helping them, because sometimes if you're removed from the situation, you can maybe see some pitfalls that may be out there. But I think empowerment's a great thing, but just be prepared. And sometimes those failures can happen, and you can take some real positives away from those. And so I would say be prepared for failures when you empower people. They need to feel like they've got the freedom to make some mistakes. And when you make those mistakes and there are failures related to empowerment, make sure you learn from them and that you don't do them again.
Yeah.
And then it's just sloppy. If it happens again, it's just sloppiness.
Sure.
But learn from those things. But be prepared.
Yeah.
I think your successes are going to be far greater, but there are going to be times when there are mistakes, and just be prepared to deal with them and learn from them. I think that'd be the lesson I would share.
That's good. Empowerments can be messy.
Yes.
But in the cost-benefit analysis,
I think so.
The benefits far outweigh the costs.
Think so.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Bret, thanks again for sitting down and chatting.
Sure.
I appreciate you being on today.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Ryan.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for listening today to the Invincible Teams podcast. Please consider giving us a rating and a review on whatever podcast platform you are currently using. If you think today's content might be useful for someone you know, please consider sharing it with them. Just a reminder that the Invincible Teams podcast is brought to you by Evergreen. Evergreen provides teamwork training and consulting to help you eliminate office drama and turnover and help you get the most out of your team. Thanks again for listening, and like we always say, we believe that every team should reach their potential, and that if we get intentional, our teams can become invincible. See you next time.